Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mushroom Oasis. And I'm long overdue to play this new update to the game. I think it starts. Here we go. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You don't deserve this. If I could just one more day with you, I'd be the happiest man alive. Here we are. Let's get you tucked in. Um, I should give you some clothes, especially since you'll be staying another night. You're okay with that, aren't you? Ugh. I blink largely awake to the gentle sounds of a crackling fire, the itchy texture of a worn bed sheets, the weight of a heavy lit blanket. I could recall once or twice having felt these very sensations to the point I considered them familiar and comforting. And yet, ooh, creepy. Nothing could prepare me for the bright yellow eyes peering into mine. My knuckles hit him square in the face as Michael yelped, nose scrunching as the taller man stumbled backwards into a stool. He landed on his rear with the grace of a clumsy toddler on the floor. I sat up in a panic and immediately grimaced, landing back on the bed with an unceremonious flop. It hit me in one fell swoop how my whole body was aching. Every single one of my limbs felt like they had gone through a wringer and come out on the other side all crinkled and wrong. I groaned aloud, leaning my head back onto the pillow. Michael shifted back into his feet, rubbing his nose. Allie! His voice was an awkward croak before he cleared his throat. I'm glad you're awake. How are you feeling? Terrible. He visibly flinched. I'm sorry to hear that. I stepped closer to the bed, leaning over warily in case my hand dramatically whips out again in self-defense. With my hand settling on my lap, he deemed it safe enough to sit beside me. What? What happened, Michael? Uh, you don't remember? I shook my head, wincing a bit as my head pounded. Not at all. Michael hesitated. You, tripped. I hit your head. Uh-huh. I had to carry you home. His words almost slurred together as he fidgeted. My head? I slowly lifted my hands to feel for bumps or bruises, but he hastily snatched my wrist. Don't worry about that. Here, have this. It'll help. Michael gave me a familiar-looking drink as he quickly pressed the cup into my hand. Sitting up with some effort to take a sip, it helped the small sense of deja vu. The amount of times I woke up in his bed dazed and disoriented is almost uncomfortable now. At least the drink was helping, just like he promised. My body felt lighter as I finished. Michael took the cup from me and set it aside before wringing his hands together with the nervousness I haven't seen in a while. So, I didn't mean for you to get hurt. I sighed and waved aside his worry with an embarrassed grumble. Wouldn't be the first time I tripped, if you could believe it. It's not your fault. He gave a soft chuckle, but it sounded guilty. I suppose you're right, it's just... His face looked like he had a million thoughts running through his head. I promised, didn't I? That I was gonna look out for you? That I was gonna keep you safe. Instead I made you hurt. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Allie. Sudden change in demeanor was startling to say the least. Couldn't have predicted that it was gonna happen. And I'm fine, see? Oh, Firefly. I guess you're right. His expression carried a lingering doubt, but he quickly masked it with a small smile, his eyes dim. In that case, you'll be staying? The way he said it almost sounded like a decision that's already been made. Or a plea. What do you mean? His eyes darted aside. You agreed to let me help you find Alan, remember? Did I say that? Yeah. So, you'll be staying a while longer, right? He didn't even let me get a word in. In fact, the feeling of uncertainty washed over me, as if we had this conversation before. I don't think I... Besides, what's the rush? It's already late and you're in no condition to travel anyway. I blinked before glancing out the window. Pitch black darkness greeted me as I realized he was right. Yeah, another uncanny feeling spread through my chest, shivers crawling down my spine. That's your fire flight. I don't know why, but something about this whole situation felt wrong. I feel like I'm forgetting something else. Michael had a nervous look on his face. Maybe you hit your head harder than you thought. His words didn't sound confident. How long was I out? Couple of hours, I think. You really took a hit. It was that bad? My brows creased as I tried to recall today's event. But I don't remember tripping. There was a river, and I remember you. And then, my memory must be fuzzy, but for a good reason. After all, my stomach rumbled suddenly, echoing in the dark, quiet room. There was a heavy silence right after. Michael was polite enough to hide his chuckle under a palm as I flushed. Seems relieved. Well, lucky for you, I've got dinner on the way. Should be ready soon. You're okay with soup, right? Soup? Soup sounds alright. My stomach growled once more, the pain of an empty gut making me wince a bit. My host noticed immediately. Oh, maybe we should get you some food sooner than later. Do you feel okay to get up now? I nodded with a grumble, swinging my legs over the side of the bed before noticing something was on my lap. Wait, what's this? I unbundled the pile of thick fabric, realizing it was an oversized sweater with a pair of baggy sweatpants. Mushroom pattern? At least they're cute. That's oddly cute. The material felt worn but comfortable. A towel laid right next to them. Is this for me? Oh, figured since you'll be staying another night, you want some fresh clothes? It might be a few sizes bigger. Or a lot. Sorry. Gotten shy for some reason. On the other hand, I didn't have to take a whiff at myself to know that I probably reeked. I nodded again, giving him a small but grateful smile. You're fine, Michael. Thank you. Yet another thing I had to owe him. I couldn't help feeling like I'm taking advantage of his kindness now. Oh no, that's quite the opposite, actually. So, you know where the bathroom is? Take your time cleaning up. I'll be in the kitchen if you need anything. I'm really happy you're here. He stood there for a few good seconds, fidgeting with his hands as if he wanted to say more before finally heading into the kitchen. I watched his back retreat before hoisting myself up and heading to the bathroom. And after I was alone, I had a moment to gather my thoughts. The nagging feeling was back, a prickly feeling across my skin, raising goosebumps as if this were to tell me I shouldn't be here. I'm just gonna place my finger on what? I should be careful. I'm definitely going to be cautious. I feel like if I be cautious around him, he'll let her go. He'll be fine with it. He even said himself, just one more day, he'll be content. He seems somewhat reasonable, to some degree. Couldn't shake this feeling that Michael was hiding something. He'd been gracious host so far, but that didn't make him the most trustworthy either. There's definitely something I'm missing. My mind was wandering even as I undressed and stepped under the shower. The icy chill of the water did nothing to distract me from my nerves. If anything, it elevated it. I was shivering a mess by the time I was done cleaning myself with the rubber soap he had laying around. Once I dried myself, I inspected his clothes inside out to see if there's anything off with them. It smelled like wet grass and burnt wood. Considering his lifestyle, it makes sense for his clothes to have that sort of scent stuck to them, I suppose. Putting them on, it just reminded me of how big and tall Michael was compared to me at least. I fidgeted and fiddled with the sleeves and waistband until I could somewhat move more comfortably. There's no mirror in his bathroom, so I had to assume I looked like a walking potato sack. Better than nothing. Gathering my courage, I shook out my hands and straightened myself before exiting towards the kitchen. A savory scent filled my nose. Michael did mention dinner was almost done. As I entered, I saw Michael by the stove, quietly stirring something crimson in a pot and humming quietly to himself. His content smile widened as he saw me, his ears flickering. I tried not to look uneasy as he looked me up and down. how do they fit? They're alright. Much too big for me. He nodded, turning back to the pot. I can see that. Right. His smile faltered as he picked up on the wariness in my tone. Is everything alright? His eyes held a sense of worry, his shoulders tensing. I could get you something else to wear if you like. There's no need. He paused, hand gripping onto the ladle tightly as he continued to hesitate. Allie. There's another pause before his brows furrowed. I'm not an idiot. You don't trust me, do you? I flinched. Michael looked hurt as he sighed. So I'm right. His ears flickered by the sides of his head as he turned back towards the stove. Can I just know why? His eyes were sad as he stared at the pot, as if he's been in this situation before. You know why, Michael? I thought I did everything right. Truthfully, I didn't expect such a direct confrontation. There's a lump in my throat as my fists clenched to my sides. It's just... The kettle started whistling, but he was clearly ignoring it. I swallowed down my growing anxiety and decided to be upfront. I just didn't expect to be here again. Felt like the wrong thing to say when Michael's frowns deepened. So you never wanted to be here? I didn't mean it like that. And how else could you possibly mean it? Another deep sigh slipped out of him as he reached to lift the kettle off the stove, mumbling to himself. Hoping you'd be different. What was I thinking? Well, making someone stay against their will isn't the right way to go about it, is it? What'd you say? Nothing. Michael, His forlorn expression made my words feel thick on my tongue, forcing me to reluctantly swallow them back down. Any trace of suspicion I had was faded, or was replaced by a feeling of guilt. I'm sorry. I just thought I'd be home by now. I know. I'm sorry too. He lifted his gaze towards me, eyes full of regret. But is it really so bad, Ellie? I know being lost in the woods with a man you don't know can be scary, but I promise that you're safe. The last thing I've ever want you to be is scared. He trailed off. So just trust me, okay? Can you do that? Please? I swallowed and gave him a nod. My gut still rolled with the suspicion, every fiber of my being wary of him to a certain extent. He seemed satisfied though, eager to move on past the tension. Thank you. His mouth quivered at the edges, all four of his eyes squinting with the slightest bit of hope. Please let it be different for once. Why don't you take a seat, Firefly? I'll be right with you. He was already turning his back towards me to start preparing the tea. As I slowly approached him. Hey, let me help this time. Michael startled, surprised to see me beside him. Oh, sure. Did you get some bowls ready? We're having tomato soup. Oh, do you want some grilled cheese with yours, or would you prefer garlic bread? People eat it with garlic bread? I mean, that doesn't sound like a bad combo, but it should be cheesy garlic bread, right? With grilled cheese, please? Got it. I brushed past him, feeling his tail lingered by my ankles as I grabbed the bowls and spoons from the bottom shelf. He started preparing the sides, the smell of toasted bread filling the kitchen and mingling with the soup. I took over preparing the tea. Finally, I ladled the soup from the pot into a larger bowl just as Michael finished flipping the last piece. We settled in for a nice hot dinner. Regardless of how I felt about tomato soup, Michael's turned out rich and creamy with an amazing balance of sour and sweet. Dipping in the bite-sized grilled cheese sandwiches made it taste like pure savory comfort, crisp and gooey. Even if I've never had it as a kid, it still made me feel nostalgic somehow. There's still a feeling of settled awkwardness, but the food helped ease us into a warmer, light-hearted conversation. I didn't realize how hungry I was until I refilled my bowl, Michael watching me with his chin propped in his hand. His own bowl sat empty, apparently he's already had his fill. Is tomato soup your favorite? The question was innocent, though his eyes were observing me carefully as I shrugged. think I love anything you cook. He's still taking a second to process what I just said. Oh, well, thank you. No, thank you. Usually I get takeout or microwave dinners. Nothing beats home cooked food. What's a microwave? I snickered and I tried to explain it the best I can. A metal box that heats up food? That sounds like what's the world into those fantasy books? Magic? Am I using that word right? I laughed lightly. Sometimes science is just like that. We talked about other kitchen appliances off the top of my head, slowly branching out to other human inventions. He seemed even more interested. Never understood how, you know what? Michael would really love an air fryer. I think he'll really think that's magic. I never understood how, technology worked. Pulled out my phone and let him fiddle with it, though with the battery dead, there's not much I could show. He was clearly disappointed. It's about as useful as a brick. For now. Otherwise, I'd have a whole network of information in my hands. His eyes lit up. Like a library? And you can access it at any time as long as the battery is still alive? As long as I have internet connection. Right. Internet. I didn't know you could do that. I just see people staring at them all the time. It seemed boring. He looked at my phone again, a look of wonder on his face. Having a whole library in your hands? Everyone must be really smart then. Well, not everyone uses it like a library, more like a messaging hub or a source of content consumption. His ear flickered as he stared at me with a blank smile. Consumption? You can eat it? Yeah, he has no clue what I'm talking about. That's why I explained to him the very concept of Web 2.0. Clear like though and decide that I simply won't. Maybe I could show you what I mean someday. His eyes brightened, seeming to like the idea a lot. You mean that? I can have some? Yeah. I think it's about time you get started on getting a little more modern around here. No offense. Imagine what you could do with a generator. His smile widened just a tad, though there was still a cluelessness to his face that was just a little endearing. Generator? I laughed and reached across to pat his hand, a gesture that made his smile wobble. Like I said, I'll show you someday. A loud thwack sounded against the floorboards, followed by a rhythmic thudding. Leaning over, I could see the tip of his tail was wagging back and forth, the tip of it slapping against the floor almost comically. Michael looked flustered as he laughed softly, pulling his hand back to rub his neck. Sorry. He looked like he had more to say, but exhaled heavily, gathering himself before tilting his chin towards my empty bowl. Are you done? I nodded as he stood and collected our dirty dishes, heading towards the sink to wash them. I followed close behind, carrying the mug. We made quick work of the dishes and headed back to the living room to relax. Michael headed to his basket of knitting materials, his movements routine. I wasn't sure what to do with myself. Now that food was no longer a distraction, I felt uneasy again, glancing around the room and staring at the window. Michael was eyeing me as he grabbed the stool and dragged it to the center of the room. Is there something outside? His question sounded innocent, but it had a sense of wariness to it. I shook my head quickly. Nothing, I was just... Something catches my eye from under the bed, glinting like a knife. Tilting my head lower, I could see that it was a tin container the size of a shoebox. What's that? Michael looked up. Under your bed? A panicked look came across his face. That thing? Just some emergency supplies. Yeah, nothing too special. I had an inkling he was being dishonest again, but I figured I'd leave it for another day. I see. Michael watched me for a moment or two before clearing his throat. Hey, Firefly? I've been meaning to ask. Do you remember what you said at the river? The river? Oh, where I tripped. Pursed my lips and thought. Not really. Everything feels fuzzy to me. Seemed disappointed. Oh, He shouldn't be disappointed. He messed up her memories. I don't get how he's disappointed when he used whatever, like, spores or whatever coming off him to screw with her memories. Not even a little. You don't want her to remember, don't you? I shook my head. Why, did I say something stupid? Just something. It made me happy. Oh god, I did say something stupid. Before I could ask about it, he had already gestured towards the bed. Well, you should get some sleep, Firefly. Want to wake up nice and early to find Alan, right? The idea of looking for my cat once more made me wilt. I fear that Alan is long gone. Those mushrooms, those spores or whatever in the forest has already taken him. I just have this feeling, unfortunately. It's so sad to think about. Do you really think we'll find him? Michael looked on edge, pocketing his hands. It doesn't hurt to try, but it does hurt to hope. His face twitched. Well, his ears flattened as he thought of something to say, barely struggling. He finally opened his mouth to respond, his words slow and careful. I'm here for you. Thank you, Michael. He nodded, a strange mixture of polite happiness and hidden anxiety playing across his face. Probably not used to another person sticking around this long, let alone someone going through a loss he could care less about. Maybe I've been enough of a burden to him. Actually, can you just send me home? His brows raised, his posture straightening in surprise. Are you sure? But what about Alan? Don't you want to see if we can find him? I'm sure. The look of apprehension crossed his face. But it's so soon. Alan could be out there by complete. I can't think about him right now. I just want to go home. Fidgeted with the sleeves of his cardigan. But I looked like he had so much more to say, but whatever turmoil going on in his head was quickly swept behind a reassuring smile. Okay. Get some sleep, Firefly. You've been through a lot. He went to collect his blankets again, already arranging them into a nest like the night before. The words left my mouth before I could think twice. I can trust you, right? A flicker of surprise crossed Michael's face. Of course you can trust me. I didn't say anything else, as if that one line should be enough to convince me. And honestly, it was too late to start an interrogation that's only gonna end up with me feeling guilty for upsetting him. I got into the covers, facing the wall with my back towards him. I could hear him setting up his nest behind me, finally quieting down with a satisfied hum. Closed my eyes. The last thing I heard was the gentle crackling of the fireplace, accompanied by Michael's knitting needles clicking away in the dark. Before I knew it, I could hear a bird chirping inside the window. The first thing I noticed was the fire must have been out, considering I couldn't hear the familiar pop and snap that came with the room's ambience. Second thing I realized was the hand gently shaking my shoulder awake. Wake up, sleepyhead. I stirred, yawning as I sat up in bed. Michael beamed, hand still on my shoulder. There you are. Had a good sleep? I mumbled incoherently. Smile widened into a grin as I blinked myself out of my woozy state. I didn't know any better. He seemed to enjoy waking me up in the morning, just to see my disgruntled expression. Breakfast is ready. Wash up and meet me in the kitchen, all right? Give me a sec. Took that as my assent, humming his response. Suddenly, his hand reached up to ruffle my hair, messing up my bedhead further. Hey! He merely laughed at my indignant squawk before reminding me once more to get up, his steps already thudding towards the kitchen. Recovering after a moment, I stared at the wall, pondering my situation for a second as I made my way to the bathroom. This was the third day since I left my house. I'm missing work, missing my cat, missing my sense of direction. I gotta get back to my life. Yeah, the work thing, what if you're fired? I'll be so mad. Today. Quietly reminding myself of my goal, I padded to the bathroom, freshened up, and joined him in the kitchen. Michael was already seated, cutting into some pancakes. His smile was bright as I entered the kitchen, his tail flickering closer to my seat as I sat down. A similar stack of mouth-watering pancakes was placed across him, waiting for me to dig in. But I couldn't bring myself to muster up an appetite, with so many thoughts filling up in my head. He seemed to notice the look on my face, now laughing nervously. You look serious. Something on your mind, Firefly? I picked up my fork, fiddling with it. I'm just worried about getting home. Michael faltered as he lifted a piece to his mouth. Oh? You're still thinking about that? He seemed annoyed, which was a first. Of course. I've been gone for 3 days. People probably think I've gone missing. His gaze lowered, almost grumbling. Is that so bad? I, what? Yeah, it's bad. Why do you sound like you don't even care? Michael frowned, looking up at me now. Why do you sound like you're desperate to leave? What? It's all you ever think about. Are you not happy here? Is it not enough? I sighed, rubbing my fingers over my eyes. Michael, we've gone over this. I've said it once and I'll say it again. You've done so much for me already. But I can't keep pretending everything's okay here. I want to go home. I need to go home. He sucked in a deep breath, grunting something indecipherable under his breath. I just only wanted to. Seemed to be battling himself before he finally sighed. I'm sorry. You're right. Of course, you're right. His tone seemed genuine, even if the hurt in his eyes were as clear as day. I'll send you back today. If I mean it. I narrowed my eyes. I mean it this time, I promise. He held his hands over his chest. I swear on my heart. He seems to have given up, I think. So I'll trust him. I mean, how could I not trust him? He was my last hope. Okay. I paused for a moment before adding quickly. Thank you. He nodded and went back to eating, watching me expectantly as he took a timid bite. It was a moment before he swallowed and spoke again. Can you promise me something? His voice was quiet for a lack of a better word, vulnerable. What is it? Promise me? His mouth hung open for a second or two before he laughed. Promise you weren't lying when you said you liked my cooking? I snorted. Are you kidding? Do I look like the kind of person to lie? I'm offended, Michael. He laughed again, light and airy. If I dared look closer, I could tell it was fake. Probably didn't want to make our last moments tense and awkward. The least I could do was meet him halfway. I mean, I guess. Oh, we're actually going. Before long, we found ourselves walking down another path to Michael's. The route was different today, probably because he didn't have any detours in mind. We walked in silence for a while, the only thing accompanying us were the sounds of nature and our footsteps. I couldn't tell what Michael was thinking. I knew he wasn't the talkative type unless spoken to, but right now he seemed eerily quiet. His back was tense, eyes looking nowhere but forward. My voice was itching to say something, anything. But it felt like the both of us had some thoughts to digest, despite it being easier to just say it out loud. Still, the silence was getting unbearable. So, both halted in their steps at the sound of rustling, Michael's ears perking in the direction. What was that? His hands were already raising to his crossbow, deftly cocking it with an experienced pull of the string until a solid click was heard. Stay quiet. Stay close. I swallowed, my heart picking up speed. He started stalking low towards the source of the noise, his boots barely making a sound compared to my clumsy footsteps. The rustling continued, sounding like a scuffle was occurring between the bushes. Closer, closer, and my ears picked up an unfamiliar high-pitched sound. It sounded like a tiny infant screaming. As morbid as that was, Michael actually relaxed as he recognized it. His steps hastened silently towards the source, crossbow lowering until we came across what exactly it was that was causing the disturbance. A rabbit, its small, delicate foot snagged in an old, rusted trap. His little body trembling as it breathed fast and shallow, no doubt scared out of its mind. Michael regarded it empathetically before unloading his crossbow, disturbed by the caught rabbit, but at the same time relieved at the absence of a threat. Just a rabbit. Leaving his crossbow behind his back and out of sight, he looked at it for another moment before looking up towards me. Let's keep going then. My mouth dropped in shock. And leave that poor thing behind? He raised a brow, confused at my bewilderment. Yes? But it's going to die. His face twisted into confusion. That's generally what happens to prey animals, yes? He was so nonchalant about it that I had to keep my emotions in check. We can't just do that. I guess as someone that's like not a hunter, like if I were to see that, I would be like, we should just release it and whatnot. But like, I mean, am I one to say that? Because like character alley here, I'm pretty sure you eat like the chicken and groceries, the meat, whatever there, and like animals are processed in very cruel ways. I guess if in our minds, if we don't see it, then it's all right. But seeing how like that rabbit is caught like that, it just makes me feel bad for it. I mean, just look at it. His expression was understanding, if a little annoyed. I am. Someone left the trap. A rabbit gets caught in it. That's how it works. What do you want me to do? Set it free? Obviously. Who's frowning now? I can't. If someone is nearby, they'll be suspicious how their catch got free. That's true. Does that matter? Animals escape traps all the time. The poor thing is suffering. Allie, I know you're smarter than this. If it doesn't die today, it will die tomorrow. To a trap, to a fox, to a hunter. Probably won't even survive long with his injured foot if we set it free. You're prolonging the inevitable. Can't you put it out of his misery then? He hesitated. Do you really want me to do that? No. But even then, we don't know if anyone's coming back for it. The thing looks so old. He sighed impatiently, looking stubborn in his decision. That's the point of a trap, is to keep things right where they are until you come back. The way he said it just rubbed me the wrong way. He is not being sadistic, he's just being realistic here. I mean, to him, if we were to let it go, be like, oh, why is that? Like, why is the rabbit not there? The hunter would probably look around and find his cabin, so just be realistic here. In a way, his logic made sense, but still, I could hardly believe how needlessly callous he was being. For someone so sweet with his hands, he was so indifferent about the poor rabbit shaking at her feet. I looked down at it once more, my heart breaking as it started to squeak. Michael. I mean, I mean, it'll be, the rabbit, if we let it go, would it just, you I don't want to leave it there. Let me just say, please. For I was torn as a rabbit helplessly kicked his feet, his cries weakening. For a moment I imagined Alan being caught in a trap just like this one, left to starve and die when someone could have been there to help him. No, you can't just leave it like this. Please, Michael. His harsh gaze started to soften at my plea. Does it matter that much to you, Firefly? I nodded quickly without hesitation. Please, it'll be the last time I ever ask you for anything. He paused for another moment before shaking his head with a defeated sigh. Somehow I doubt it's the last time. There was a smile in his voice, though. But it's alright. I'll do it for you. Stand back. I have to pry it open. The gratitude was clear on my face as he pulled out a deadly-looking hunting knife from his pocket, kneeling down next to the rabbit. Terrified creatures started to writhe all over again at the sign of a looming threat, Michael grunting as he held it down firmly with one hand. It started to fall under his hold, relaxing completely with his foot hanging limp. Huh? Sure had a way with animals. doesn't, it's just the spores. I backed away to give him space, not wanting to distract him. As he was working to free the rabbit, I looked around to take in my surroundings. The trees felt somewhat familiar, a flash of a memory playing in my mind. Casting one last glance towards Michael's back, I wandered a bit further away, making sure to stay within earshot. It took a few steps before I came across a familiar sight. Uh-oh, the death mushrooms. Oh, it was a circle of mushrooms from the other day. I recalled that Alan was definitely here. I hesitated at the side edge of it, a sourceless sense of fear suddenly coursing through me as I stared at it. Had it grown bigger? The longer I stood there, the more the fear dissipated, my limbs tingling pleasantly and urging me forward. Before I realized it was my foot was already lifting to approach it. Closer, closer. Staring at it, a fuzzy haze creeped over my mind. My face was warm. I found myself smiling at the oddly comforting familiarity, like recalling a fond memory, like greeting an old friend. I knelt down to inspect the growth, reaching out to brush my hand on one of the mushroom caps, when someone yanked my wrist back. What? Don't. Huh? Don't touch those. Looked up to see Michael looming over me, gaze sharp and irises shaped like thin silvers. You have a terrible habit of wandering off, don't you? I gulped. I just. How is that rapid? Is it safe? His eyes narrowed as I failed to change the subject. It's pretty like you asked. Don't touch those. Michael squeezed my wrist before letting go. I mean, he really just saved you right now. I rubbed my wrist. It didn't hurt, but his grip had intent. Why? What's wrong with them? Nothing. Just don't touch them. I just thought it looked pretty, that's all. Did you, though? I shook my head, feeling disoriented as my mind flickered between thoughts rapidly like a broken radio station. Michael snapped his fingers for my attention. Look at me, Firefly. His voice was snipping and irritated. Uh-huh. I blinked rapidly to ground myself, scratching my head as I tried to gather my thoughts. Talk to me. Say anything. Some people think they're magic? Yeah, that's a pretty common belief with mushroom rings, right? I hung on to that thought. Keep going. Like, related to fae folk, you know? That's why they're called fairy rings or a fairy circle. Michael squinted before easing, his demeanor just a little tense compared to before. They do look like they could summon a portal at any moment and whisk away. Looked over at Michael, expecting him to look amused. Instead, he was glaring at the ground, as if the mushrooms were the most vile thing he's ever seen. No, it's more of an invasive species than anything. I followed his gaze towards a harmless circle of fungus. He is not harmless. They are? Should we do something about it? He blinked as if coming out of a daze. No. Sorry, a thought slipped out. He pinched his nose bridge, his normally soft voice a tired grumble. Normally I leave them alone to do their business, but having you here... Anyways, just don't touch it, okay? He was being far too uptight about something as trivial as a circle of mushrooms. Feels like there's more to it than that. His sigh was exasperated. They just ruin my part of the forest, is all. They make me uncomfortable. It definitely felt like Michael wanted to use a stronger word than uncomfortable, barely concealed growl between his teeth. Why, I thought you liked mushrooms. Michael's ears flattened. Not these ones. Not even real mushrooms. They're not? No. He seemed to hesitate before blurting. They just happen to mimic mushrooms. Oh, I've never heard of something like that. Though there are some pretty wild foliage out here that could copy the look of nearby plants. Does it have a name? His brow scrunched in confusion. What, them? Yeah, as in the species. Oh, I'm not entirely sure. I can recognize them by sight though, so just stick with me when we're out of the woods, okay? I really don't want you anywhere near them. Alright, if you say so. I just don't get how they can be invasive is all. I consider it invasive when they come into my property. Is he really getting this angry over cute mushrooms? I don't know, I can't just say to her that they're poisonous or something. Gonna be honest, you're acting really weird about it, Michael. He was getting more agitated the longer we stood there, hand clenching into a tight fist. Allie, I know I asked a lot from you, but please, let's just leave them alone, okay? Why? Allie, come on now. You're being annoying. There's something you're not. Look, can we just. I finished backing away from him as his voice rang through the trees. A silence passed between us before he took a deep breath. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I don't blame him for yelling. She was being really annoying. Please, can we step away from here? He held out his hand. Fingers were trembling. Yeah, I'll just take it because that was on her. I closed my hand around his, noting the way his tail flicked so hard it thumped against his leg. His fingers were calloused against my own, twitching at the unfamiliar sensation. I stepped up beside him, looking at him expectantly. Oh, I didn't think you'd take it. Now it was my turn to get flustered. You offered. I know I did. I thought I scared you, so I figured. We waited for the other to say something, our faces growing heated as seconds passed. He finally laughed, exclaiming something strange and garbled before squeezing my hand. Allie, you're really something special. I hope you realize that. He gave my hand another tight squeeze before snapping me out of my daydream. Let's get you home, Firefly. Michael took the lead, his foot sure and confident. He must have noticed my unsteady gait beside him as he steadily veered toward the clearer paths I could easily follow. I didn't verbalize it, but I was definitely grateful for that. As much as the forest was growing on me, getting my feet caught in roots and twigs every few steps was tiring after a while. Our steps fell into rhythm next to each other. I peeked at Michael every once in a while, trying to gauge his mood after what happened. Even after spending so much time with him, he was so difficult to read. How could someone wear both his heart on their sleeve yet keep it stitched tight, never letting anyone come too close? I knew he had secrets that he wanted to keep close to his chest, but I wished he'd just open up to me a little. The silence that hung in the air was making my skin prickle. What's your favorite animal? I was so caught up in my thoughts I didn't even realize I blurred the first thing that came to mind. Michael regarded me curiously, ear flicking. My favorite animal? He pursed his lips together in thought before his ears perked. Jellyfish. I did a double take. It was one thing for him to have an answer so readily, but the choice was something else. A jelly... Why jellyfish? I thought it'd be, I don't know, a bird or something. He shrugged. They're pretty to look at least from pictures I've seen. Plus, I kind of relate to them. He said that without zero hesitation. How exactly do you relate to jellyfish? His expression faltered as if deciding on the right way to explain his answer. Let's just say I have something in common. With a jellyfish? Well, one jellyfish. In what way? That they're pretty to look at? A strangled noise slipped past his throat. No! You wouldn't get it. Try me. No. I groaned like a dying whale in exasperation, shoulders slumped like I had a back problem. He's not gonna elaborate anymore, is he? I probably spotted the vein growing on my forehead as he snickered. Relax, Firefly. You're gonna faint on the spot if you think any harder. If you're allowed to get upset about mushrooms, I'm allowed to get upset about jellyfish. Smile dropped for a second before his shaky grin returned. Touche. Oh, he said touch. He meant touche. Touch? Touch what? You know, touch. I stared at him, his happy grin shifting into confused frown. You know, touch when it's like saying you're right. You mean touche? He smiled innocently. Yeah. This man will be the death of me. He laughed at my screwed up grimace, waving a hand hastily. What about you? What's your favorite animal? Cats or chickens? I will say cats. She has a cat. He snorted, a fond smile on his lips. You know what? I don't even know why I bothered asking. Of course it's cats. What's that supposed to mean? He gave me a look. You know what I mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. He pretty much giggled in response. We continued with idle chatter after that. I didn't even know how much time had passed as the trees slowly thinned out, the sound of nature muffling as the canopy started to grow scarce. Suddenly I heard the soft yet familiar rumble of a car in the distance. Oh, he actually took us back home! I almost didn't pick up on it, fully immersed in whatever Michael was rambling about. Something something about the life cycle of the topsy-turvy Dorney or whatever he called it. Oh, have I really walked that far already? I left Michael's side and rushed forward. He made a sound of surprise but followed suit. I neared the edge of the forest just as another car drove past. I recognized my street instantly. Breaking into a light jog, I almost missed Michael calling for my name as I run down the road. There. My house was visible from where I stood by the street. I was breathing heavily by the time Michael approached my side, the man barely making a sound as I took in the sight. Oh, I missed this. I turned to thank Michael, only to be startled when the bundled stranger took his place. Ah, sorry. People about. Couldn't see anyone around, but I guess he was right to be safe. I guess this was his version of a disguise. If I were to pass him on the street, I don't think I would have been bothered to look twice. I mean, I want to say thank you to your face, but I'll settle for this, I guess. His chuckles was muffled under the scarf. He pulled it down so he could speak properly. Did I scare you? I got distracted. Michael's eyes squinted from where I could see them. And I wonder how you don't get lost every 20 steps. Hey, he laughed at my offended tone. Better not go back in there, got it? I'm not always gonna be around to find you. Just as I need you around to find me. Almost instantly, his eyes hardened under his sunglasses. I'm serious. Don't go wandering in these woods again, or I might have to start taking drastic measures just to make sure you stay put right where you are. I sputtered indignantly. I'll wander wherever I please. Sure. Looked over my shoulder towards my house. So that's where you live, huh? It's cozy. I wasn't sure if he was being genuine, considering he lived in the wooden back ends of the middle of nowhere. Suddenly I perked up with a thought. Do you want to come by? His eyes darted towards me, shock evident on his face. Me? To your home? I nodded. He froze completely. For a second I thought he stopped breathing. I love. Sudden barking and a shout startled us both, my body shrinking forward as his arm yanked me close. I heard a soft rustle as his sunglasses fell to the grass from his sudden motion, his hastily worn beanie shaking off his head. Looking up, it was just my neighbor calling out to their dog. Oh? Looks like Vita's back from college. I paused, feeling his grip tighten. I looked down at his hands on my shoulder before glancing up at him. Michael? He snapped back to the present, his hand releasing me quickly. Sorry. He looked towards my neighbor and her dog for another moment before turning back to me. I don't think it's a good idea for me to go with you. I don't want to be seen. I deflated just a little. But you have your own disguise, don't you? He shook his head insistently. I can't risk it. It's better this way. Spoke with a finality that was starting to become familiar. If it wasn't willing, fine. At least I was. But before he could pick up his accessories, I gently grabbed his wrist. Then can I come visit you instead? What? I huffed impatiently. If you won't come to mine, then I'll go to yours. Once again, he was rendered speechless. Why would you ever want to see me again? At this point, I was starting to look and sound peeved. For all his good traits, the constant need to build his walls higher around me was starting to get annoying. I folded my arms, looking stern. His eyes widened as if in preparation, ears flattening like a cat in the middle of a scolding. Michael, can you just accept the fact that maybe I enjoy your company and wouldn't mind more? I'm sorry, nobody's ever... But you wanted to go home so badly? Oh, this man is hopeless. Yes, of course I do. But that doesn't mean I'm just gonna forget about you completely. Besides, I promised I'd show you what phones could do, didn't I? It's based on the fact that there's probably not much I can show when there's no data in the woods. I'm sure he'd be enthralled by whatever dinky mobile game I had installed at the time. The point was, I just wanted to see him again. So that means I get to see you again? Picked up on the eager tone in his voice, realizing he wished for the same sentiment. Yeah, I want to. His voice warbled for a second. Firefly cleared his throat, laughing to himself. Allie, can't imagine how much that means to me. A lot. It means a lot. More than you know. I nodded, a giddy smile creeping onto my own face. How's next weekend? He tilted his head. That's 7 sundowns from now? 5. His smile widened, eyes squinting in absolute delight. Okay, I'll meet you here then. I smiled at him, figuring this was goodbye. I'm gonna hug him to reassure him more. I didn't think twice, arms spread and wrapped around him before he could react. Michael froze from head to toe, inhaling sharply as his shoulders tensed. For a second, I thought I triggered a fight or flight or freeze response. It took a few seconds before he shifted to reciprocate, lightly placing his hands on the small on my back in a loose hold, fingertips splayed awkwardly along my spine. He seemed to gain confidence as he wrapped his arms around me, properly, shaking slightly in his body as he relaxed. A faint rhythmic rumbling emitted from his chest, my eyes widening at the strange feeling. Was he purring? I knew I heard that sound before, but he was definitely purring. Purring? Is he? What? Purring? I didn't have time to dwell on it for so long. His grip was getting tighter. 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 I was about to sputter out a gentle protest when another car passing by made him jump and release me. I had to step away to catch my breath after the squeeze. His arms dropped to his sides with a blank stare in my direction. Oh. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see his hand clenching tightly as if holding himself back. I looked up at him, expecting him to say something first. Instead, he just stared at me like I grew a third eye. Clearly cleared my throat and cheeks started to burn. Anyways, I gave him one last punch to the shoulder. Felt like punching a sack of grains. I'll see you next weekend. Ignoring the heat in my face, I looked both ways before jogging across the street. The neighbor in their yard looked up at me as I approached, her eyes lighting up in recognition. Allie? Their hands fidgeted with the frisbee in their hand as they approached, their ever loyal Leica falling close behind. I was wondering where you've been. I dropped by to give you some cake over the weekend, but you weren't home and you didn't answer your phone, and your packages were piling up on the door, and I held up my hand in a placating gesture. Beta, I'm fine. At our feet, Leica was dutifully pawing at their elbow to calm them down. Their mouths stopped midway through another sentence, blinking rapidly. Sorry. They reached down to pat Leica's head, significantly calmer as they asked me again. Where were you? Where have you been? I was, visiting a friend. For a digital detox? Off the grid and all that. They blinked slowly, nodding. Oh, that sounds exciting. By the tone of their voice, they didn't mean it at all. And what about Alan? Did you manage to find him? The mood instantly dropped. No. That's why I went there in the first place, you could say. It took a few seconds for Vita to understand what I meant. Oh, sorry. It's fine. They straightened, a flash of empathy on their face before they smiled. Well, Leica and I are around for the semester break if you need anything. We should do a movie night. Maybe that'll lift your spirits. I found this really good one. I think you'll like it. Did some research and I feel like it's right up your alley. Leica and I take a quick drive to the store, so just let us know when you're up for it. Leica and I could... I could get your favorite snacks and stuff. I could give a happy bark at that familiar word. A fond smile quirked at my lips. Thank you, Vita. I'll bring the orange soda. Her expression lit up happily. Take care. I bid them both goodbye to walk up to my driveway. Once I got to my door, I had the urge to turn around one last time. I was surprised to see Michael still standing by the forest edge, shadowed by the trees. Our eyes made contact, his own a fierce, piercing yellow shining against our shade. Gave him a big wave. Took a moment, but he waved back. Smiling to myself, I unlocked the front door and let myself inside. It was surreal standing in my doorway again. Felt like Alice who just woke up at the end of the book, feeling like I dreamed of a wonderland. Tossed my keys in my backpack by the hall carelessly before plugging my phone into the charger. I dreaded playing catch up with the people who might have tried to reach me during my absence. Work, family, friends. I groaned aloud, flopping onto the living room couch. Oh well, at least I had this weekend to look forward to. And that is all for day 3. Now that we got friendly with Michael, which is a good thing, maybe he'll be more receptive to like coming out of his shell in a way. I don't know though. With Michael, you're saying he was purring, so he's some type of mushroom animal hybrid. Because when Allie was talking about like the whole fairy circle with the mushrooms, I'm thinking maybe the mushrooms, like that mushroom ring and Michael, maybe are like kind of the same thing in a way. Like they're both born from the forest, maybe, or something. Like maybe Michael's some sort of fairy or fae himself. I don't know. It just seems like the more likely answer of what he is, basically. Yeah. This is the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching it. Bye.